My close friend's naughty son. To take revenge because I forbade him to use his cell phone, he changed. Secretly glue home lubricant. Strong 502 as a result. At midnight, my husband and friend stayed. Stuck 01 to the other and had to be taken to the hospital. Mom Hugo has lifted my smile. Hearing my daughter Sofia's complaint gave me a headache. My best friend's son had always been rude and a mess. But this time he was out of line. I went to look for my friend Lorena to tell her what had happened. Scolded Hugo harshly and punished him without a cell phone. Hugo electrocuted me with a look full of fury. Everything is your fault, Chivata. Lorena quickly apologized to me. I'm going to buy something to bite into, and tonight we'll have a few drinks together, to compensate you for the bad time I refused. But my friend insisted. Come on, have a drink. It's not going to stop me from tonight. You and your husband try to have a baby. It was difficult. Reject so much insistence. So I accepted. Lorena sent Hugo home, and I asked my mother to come pick up Sofia. Without children involved, adults could relax and drink to your liking. The pity is that I was not at my best. After only 2 drinks, it was very sick. I was afraid of vomiting in the master bedroom and disturbing my husband, Victor, who was resting. So I asked Lorena to take me to the guest room. In the middle of the night, a few giggles. They brought me out of my amazement. Lorena's mimosa and sensual voice through my ears. You haven't eaten today, or why do you have it so loose? I was confused, but immediately I heard my husband's voice lower. My voice, Valeria is in the next room. Lorena let out a giggle. I quietly put some pills in it to sleep in the drink. Right now, even if there was an earthquake, would not wake up. Come on, give it harder. Make me yours until you leave me. Breathless, please, my love. My husband continues with enthusiasm. You are shameless, insatiable. Then don't cry. I made the urge to get up, but a wave of vertigo assailed me, forcing us to fall heavily on the bed before I could catch your breath. A cry of agony, heartbreaking, came from the next room. The screams became more and more violent. Soundproofing of this building had always been bad, and the screeches did not take long to provoke the anger of the neighbors. It is the middle of the morning. You have no minimum of shame. Shut up now, or I'll call the police, shouted someone. But the warning of the neighbor did not reduce the volume of the howls shortly thereafter. The screams were joined by the cries and pleas of a woman. It wasn't long before there was a knock on the front door. We are the district police. Open the door. The cries of pain continued, and no one opened. The police had to contact the building manager and call a locksmith to force entry, as the guest room was closer to the entrance. The police found me first. Ma'am is fine, I responded in a weak voice. My head is spinning a lot. Please call an ambulance. An agent took out his cell phone and called the emergency room. When I was taken out in Camilla and I walked through the door, I saw another Camilla coming out of the next room. But that one weighed a lot. 2 wardens were not enough. A couple of policemen had to help to get her out. I took a look. Victor and my best friend Lorena were naked on the Camilla, shrunken, stacked one on top of the other, glued intimately. With their hands they tried to desperately throw a small blanket to show one's face. Had discovered a scandal so large that the elevator area was full of curious neighbors. Before such a shocking show, the comments were not long in coming that they were doing it, and it has stayed stuck inside. That's why they called the ambulance. Not what's wrong. They say that the woman was desperate and rode it with the family dog. The husband arrived home in the middle of the night. He found out he beat them up, and from the scare the dog got hooked on. No wonder they wear a Camilla that weighs double. What a perverted people. But then a neighbor jumped to deny it. I live across the street and meet the owner of the house. The one they have just taken out alone in a Camilla was the wife. The one that is glued to him is another. After much affection, the neighbors reached the incredible conclusion the husband was with another woman at home. The woman caught them, beat them up. Monumental, that ended in domestic tragedy. And all to the hospital. Upon arrival at the hospital, the doctor discovered that my blood cholesterol levels were very low, and my blood pressure was abnormal. While I was undergoing emergency treatment, from the next room they kept listening to each other. Cries of pain. A man and a woman crying and howling in chorus. Knew those screams too well. Were my husband and my supposed best friend. Princesses with gotcha heads. Those 2 next to me were whispering near me. They say they poured super glue thinking it was a lubricant. Now they are so close together that not even a strip of them separate. We'll have to wear AEL. Really at his age, and with such extreme games. How they stick their all in there. Both of them will have their area destroyed forever. A new wave of vertigo gripped my head. The teacher gave me a drip and told me I should rest suspected of drug intoxication, combined with alcohol banned me from to get up to prevent dizziness from causing me to fall. I felt, and without power, I carry the weight of fatigue and sedatives in my system. I fell back into a deep sleep. By opening my eyes without even time to incorporate myself, I received a sonorous slap all over my face. It was pink. My shameless mother-in-law, you have destroyed my son. I brought my hand to my face, totally disoriented. Mom, what are you talking about? My mother-in-law began to curse me with screams. No matter who was watching, I always knew you were an inspiration to this family. Their voice echoed throughout the emergency room, and all those present were. They looked into us. I felt a lump in my throat and a huge confusion. Mom, last night I was brought to the hospital for a headache. I don't know what the hell you're telling me. Something has happened to Victor. My angry mother-in-law raised his hand to hit me again, but a security guard came running in and stopped her. She was struggling and screaming. This woman provoked my son in the middle of the night and has left him. The torn member has ruined his life, has left us without the possibility of having heirs. I just want to hit it. I want to see it destroyed. People too are around looking at the scene as if it were a soap opera. I felt like a naked clown in the middle of for the entertainment of the public. Rosa kept screaming, saying that he was going to make the major possible scandal to ruin my reputation, and even encouraged the curious to take pictures. Hasan, sick. She can't live without a man. You understand me? Cried out at the ferocity of the old woman. I did not immediately defend myself. On the contrary, I wish he would scream louder, and the whole hospital would find out. In the end, the one who was not going to be ridiculous was me. The situation was so grotesque that the warden, who was looking out for me, couldn't take it anymore and let out a scream. Ma'am. The woman his son was with and got stuck is in the next room. Is not his daughter-in-law. My mother-in-law was stunned. Seconds later, Ite came to his senses and began to insult the lying worker. You are his guardian. I'm sure he paid you to say this. You have no conscience. God will punish you for lying like this. The warden was not going to put up with that. Put his hands on his hips and stood up to Rosa. Lady who will be punished. God is you. Her beloved son was with another woman in the middle of the night, using glue. And that is why they are here to stay. Without a family future is the result of their behavior. Irresponsible. If you don't believe me, go to the next room and check it out. You yourself, my mother-in-law, did not expect. Response was completely paralyzed. After a good while he regained his breath, and pointing at me with a trembling finger threatened me. Despicable little girl, you're going to pay for them. Barely uttered those words. Uniformed police officers appeared at the foot of my bed. Mrs. Valeria, we consider it related, with one case of serious personal injury. Can cooperate with our research. Listening to the words of the police, my mother-in-law recovered all his aggressiveness at once. Officers, it is this woman who has harmed my son. Arrest her. She already gave me a look, loaded with malice, and smiled at me with, bitch, karma has arrived. Karma has arrived, Rosa hissed, her face contorted into a grotesque mask of triumph. She looked at the two police officers, practically vibrating with glee. Take her away. Put her in chains. She mutilated my son. I stared at the officers. My vision was still swimming from whatever cocktail of sedatives they had pumped into my veins, but the sheer absurdity of the situation acted like a shot of adrenaline straight to my heart. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. The betrayal I had witnessed in the hallway had burned away whatever weakness I had left. Ma'am, the older officer said, his voice completely devoid of the dramatic flair my mother-in-law was projecting. We need to ask you some questions. Your husband and a Ms. Lorena have both given statements claiming that you forced them into their current predicament at knife point in a jealous rage. A hollow, incredulous laugh escaped my throat. It scratched against my vocal cords. At knife point. Officer, look at her, Rosa screeched, pointing a trembling, arthritic finger at my face. She's a psychopath. She planned this. She wanted to destroy his manhood so no other woman could have him. Rosa, shut your mouth before you drown in your own spit, I said. My voice was quiet, raspy, but it cut through the emergency room like shattered glass. I slowly turned to the officers, pushing myself up against the sterile pillows. Officers, I want to press charges.
Right now.
Against Lorena for drugging me, and against my husband for filing a false police report. The younger cop raised an eyebrow, his pen hovering over his notepad.
Drugging.
You? Check my charts, I said, pointing toward the nurse's station. The ER doctor just put me on in 4 flush. He suspected drug intoxication. Lorena handed me a drink last night. After half a glass, I collapsed. I couldn't move, couldn't keep my eyes open. She deliberately incapacitated me so she could screw my husband in my own guest room. The older officer frowned, clearly sensing the holes in Victor's frantic, pain-riddled statement. If you were incapacitated, Mrs. Valeria, then how did the adhesive get involved? I closed my eyes for a second, piecing together the timeline. The memory of the afternoon hit me like a physical blow.
Hugo.
Lorena's bratty, malicious teenage son. The confiscated cell phone. Hugo, I whispered. Then I looked up, my eyes wide. It was Hugo, Lorena's son. Yesterday afternoon, I caught him doing something completely out of line.
I
Scolded him and took his phone away. He looked at me like he wanted me dead.
He
Must have snuck into the bathroom to retaliate. He must have swapped out Victor's personal lubricant with industrial 502 superglue, hoping I would use
it.
Silence fell over the small cubicle. Even Rosa stopped breathing for a second, her brain struggling to process the sheer, horrific irony of the situation. So let me get this straight, the older officer muttered, scratching his jaw. The kid tried to glue you. The mother drugged you, so she could sleep with your husband. And then the mother and your husband used the sabotaged bottle in the dark. Yes, I said, a cold, dark smile finally touching my lips. I suggest you go to Lorena's apartment right now and check Hugo's browser history, or his pockets.
I
Guarantee you'll find an empty tube of 502. The officers exchanged a look. We'll send a unit to the boy's residence. Immediately. We'll also be subpoenaing your blood work.
do it, I said.
And officer? Yes, ma'am. When you confirm they lied, I want them both arrested the second they're surgically separated. If that's even possible. As the police walked away, Rosa stood there, frozen. The color had completely drained from her face, leaving her looking like a withered, miserable ghost.
The
truth was violently crashing down on her. Her precious, infallible son hadn't been attacked. He had been cheating on me in my own house while I lay drugged in the next room, and his own mistress's son had been the architect of his destruction. You, Rosa stammered, backing away. This is still your fault. If you had just kept him satisfied. Get out, I said, my voice dropping to a demonic whisper. Before I have security throw you out by your cheap perm. She fled. I spent 2 days in the hospital, recovering from the heavy dose of Rohypnol. Lorena had slipped into my gin and tonic. During that time, the hospital was a beehive of gossip. You can't keep a secret when it takes a team of 5 surgeons, a dermatologist, and a urologist to separate 2 human beings fused together by industrial-grade cyanoacrylate. From what my favorite nurse, Marta, whispered to me while changing my the surgery had been a bloodbath of flesh and dignity. Super glue bonds instantly to moisture and skin. It generates heat as it cures. Because Victor and Lorena had been so enthusiastic, the friction had spread. The glue deep into Lorena's internal tissue and coated Victor entirely. The bond was stronger than human flesh. To separate them, the surgeons had no choice but to cut. They had to flay him, honey, Marta whispered, shaking her head, her eyes wide. With a mixture of disgust and pity. Skin grafts. Lots of them. They took skin from his thighs to rebuild what they could. But the nerves, the erectile tissue, it's gone. Necrosis had already started because the blood flow was constricted for hours. I stared at the ceiling. And her? Severe chemical burns and lacerations. They had to reconstruct her pelvic
floor.
She's going to be walking with a cane for a long time, and she's got a colostomy bag for the next 6 months while her internal tears heal. I felt no pity.
None.
They had dug their own graves, climbed in and buried themselves. On the 3rd day, the police returned. You were right, Valeria, Detective Moreno said, standing at the foot of my
bed.
We brought the kid in. Hugo. He cracked in about 3 minutes.
Sobbed his
eyes out. Confessed to finding a bottle of industrial 502 in his grandfather's toolbox and pouring it into the lube bottle in your master bathroom. He wanted to give you a rash. He had no idea his mother was going to use it. Where is he now? Juvenile detention. Given the severity of the injuries, the DA is looking at reckless endangerment and aggravated assault. Moreno paused. We also got your tox screen back. Positive for flunitrazepam. Roofies. Lorena's fingerprints were on the blister pack we found at the bottom of her purse. So they lied in their police reports.
Yes.
We've stationed officers outside their recovery rooms.
As soon as they are
medically cleared, Victor will be charged with filing a false police report, and Lorena is looking at a minimum of 5 to 10 years for drugging you. I signed the discharge papers that afternoon. My mother had my daughter, Sofia, safe at her house. The storm was just beginning, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't the one getting rained on. I was the one holding the lightning. I didn't go back to the apartment right away. I went straight to the law offices of Elena Castillo, the most ruthless, bloodthirsty divorce attorney in the city. When I laid out the police reports, the toxicology results, and the medical summary, Elena took off her reading glasses, poured us both a glass of expensive bourbon, and smiled. Valeria, my dear, Elena purred. We aren't just going to take him to the cleaners. We're going to take the cleaners, the building, and the dirt he walks
on.
Within 48 hours, Elena filed an emergency ex parte order. Because Victor was facing criminal charges and had committed adultery in the marital home, a judge swiftly granted me exclusive occupancy of the apartment, full temporary custody of Sofia, and froze all of Victor's assets to prevent him from hiding money. A week later, I finally went to the hospital to see Victor. Not out of love, out of closure. His room smelled of iodine, rotting flesh, and despair. Victor lay on the bed, propped up on pillows, staring blankly at the wall. A cage-like structure was placed over his lower half to keep the sheets from touching his mutilated groin. He looked 10 years older. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken. Rosa was sitting in the corner, peeling an apple. When she saw me, she dropped the knife, her eyes flaring with hatred. You have some nerve coming here? Mom. Shut up, Victor rasped. His voice was weak, pathetic. He didn't even look at her. He turned his hollow eyes to me. Valeria. Don't, I said, pulling up a chair and sitting just out of his reach. I dropped a manila envelope onto his lap tray. Those are the divorce papers. You're signing everything over. The apartment, full custody of Sofia, and 70% of your savings. You can't do this. Rosa screamed, lunging forward. I didn't even look at her. I kept my eyes locked on Victor. If you fight me on this, Victor, Elena will take this to open court. All the medical records, the police testimony, the fact that your mistress's teenage son permanently destroyed your genitals because you couldn't keep your pants zipped. The local papers will have a field day. Husband castrated by karma. It has a nice ring to it. Tears welled up in Victor's eyes. The arrogant, demanding man who had commanded me around for years was gone, replaced by a broken, whimpering shell. Valeria, please. I'm destroyed. The doctors say I'll never function again. I have to pee through a tube. Isn't that punishment enough? You didn't get punished because of me, Victor. You got punished because you and Lorena are vile people who bred a vile child. I leaned in closer. You drugged the mother of your child so you could fuck her best friend. You died to me that night. Sign the papers, or I will make sure the whole world knows exactly what kind of monster you are. His hand shook as he reached for the pen. Rosa sobbed in the corner, covering her face. As Victor signed his name on the dotted lines, effectively ending his life as he knew it, I felt a weight lift off my chest. Oh, and Victor? I said, taking the envelope back. Lorena's lawyer called. Mine. She's suing you for her medical bills, claiming you forced the lube on her. Good luck with that. I walked out, leaving him to the sound of his mother's weeping. The criminal trial happened 6 months later. By then, the divorce was finalized. I had sold the apartment. The memories of that night were too deeply stained into the walls, and bought a beautiful little house with a garden for Sofia, entirely funded by Victor's frozen bank accounts. Lorena didn't look like a sensual, confident homewrecker anymore. When she was wheeled into the courtroom, she looked like a withered old woman. She wore a loose beige jumpsuit to accommodate her medical appliances. She couldn't sit straight. The nerve damage in her pelvis was permanent. Hugo was there, too, brought in from the juvenile psychiatric facility. The boy was heavily medicated, staring at the floor, finally broken by the realization of what his prank had done to his own mother. I took the stand and testified flawlessly. I recounted the drugging, the dizziness, the betrayal. The defense tried to paint me as a bitter wife, but the toxicology report was ironclad. When Victor was called to testify against Lorena, the courtroom descended into a circus. Victor, walking with a heavy limp and wearing sweatpants because jeans caused him too much agony, glared at Lorena with unfiltered hatred. They screamed at each other right there in the courtroom. Lorena accused him of ruining her life. Victor screamed that her demon spawn had castrated him. The judge had to bang his gavel so hard I thought the wood would splinter. The verdict was swift. Lorena was sentenced to 7 years in a state penitentiary for drugging me. The judge noted that the medical consequences she suffered were a tragedy of her own making, but not a substitute for the law. Hugo was ordered to remain in a juvenile psychiatric facility until he was 18, followed by heavy probation. Victor walked out of the courtroom a free man, but only in the legal sense. He was bankrupt, medically mutilated, emotionally destroyed, and forced to move back into Rose's tiny, damp apartment. They were trapped in a hell of their own creation, a toxic mother and a broken son, feeding off each other's bitterness for the rest of their lives. 3 years have passed since that night. The scars on my soul have faded, replaced by the warm, chaotic joy of my new life. Sofia is thriving. She's 8 now, taking ballet lessons and missing her 2 front teeth. She rarely asks about her father. On the few occasions Victor is allowed supervised visitation, he sits quietly in the corner of the visitation center, looking defeated, smelling faintly of antiseptic and old grief. Sofia finds him boring and prefers to play with her toys. I open my own bakery. It was a dream I had put on hold because Victor always complained that the smell of flour and yeast ruined the apartment. Now my house smells like cinnamon, fresh bread, and freedom every single day. I met someone too. A pediatric nurse named Julian. He is kind, patient, and looks at me like I am the only woman in the world. He knows my past. He knows the whole ugly, bizarre story. The first time I told him, he didn't laugh or judge. He just held my hand, looked me in the eyes, and said, "I'm so glad you survived them." Tonight, Julian and I are sitting on the back porch of my house. The stars are bright, the air is crisp, and I am sipping a glass of red wine, a glass I poured myself. My phone buzzes on the table. It's an article forwarded by Elena, my old lawyer, who still likes to send me the occasional bit of gossip. The headline reads, "Local woman denied parole. Ex-lover sues again for medical damages." I skim the article. Lorena's request for early release due to medical complications was denied. Victor, desperate for money, had launched yet another frivolous civil suit against her, claiming emotional distress. They were 2 scorpions, trapped in a jar, stinging each other until the end of time. "What is it?" Julian asks, wrapping a warm blanket around my shoulders and pressing a kiss to my temple. I look at the screen for a second longer, feeling absolutely nothing for the names printed in the digital ink. No anger, no sorrow, just a profound, quiet peace. "Nothing important," I say, turning off the phone and tossing it onto the table. I lean my head against Julian's shoulder, looking out at the garden I built from the ashes of my old life. Just a ghost story. Karma didn't just arrive that night. It stayed, did its job, and set me free.